Hear me out. You searched for a flight on Tuesday, you searched again on Thursday, and the price went up. So you cleared your cookies, opened incognito mode, searched again, and felt like maybe, just maybe, you'd outsmarted the system, but you didn't. Not even close. Or even worse, you found the price that you like. You decide, okay, I'm going to log into an account and put my address in there, and you see the price change. And here's the thing. The flight isn't even the part of this I care about most, because what started with something like airlines has now spread to hotels, concerts, video games, food delivery, and this is the one that made me actually stop and stare: the physical shelf tag at your grocery store. This is the Olive Badger channel, and today we're talking about dynamic pricing, what it actually is, how it evolved from a mildly annoying airline quirk into a system that's quietly infiltrating every freaking consumer purchase you make, and why the most recent version of it deserves a much angrier name than dynamic pricing. We'll get into some real examples, the regulatory fight that's currently losing, and what you can actually do. Let's get into it. So first things first, let's define our terms, because the industry uses language very deliberately here, and I think we need to know what they're doing. So dynamic pricing is when prices change based on market conditions. So demand goes up, price goes up, supply drops, price climbs. And example, like a flight costs more over Thanksgiving because a lot of people want to fly over Thanksgiving. That's the version they'll openly admit to, and it's been around long enough that most of us have just accepted it as the background radiation of modern commerce. Then you have surge pricing, which is a form of dynamic pricing, but fast and sharp. So you have Uber on New Year's Eve, concert tickets the second the queue opens. This is the version that generates public outrage when it shows up somewhere new, because the speed makes the extraction visible in a way the slow price creep just doesn't. And then there's surveillance pricing. This is the one that barely gets talked about and the one that should concern you the most. Surveillance pricing is when the price doesn't respond to the market, it responds to you, specifically you. Your browsing history, your location, your device, your demographics, what the algorithm has inferred about you, your income, your urgency, your alternatives, and your willingness to pay. The FTC draws this distinction explicitly, that dynamic pricing is about market conditions, surveillance pricing is about individual consumer characteristics using your personal data to calculate the maximum you personally will accept, then charging you that. One of those is supply and demand. The other is a targeting system wearing supply and demand's clothing. Corporate PR counts on you not knowing the difference, so now you do. And let's go through the industries, because airlines didn't even invent this, but they perfected it, and the current evolution is darker than most people realize. An Israeli company called Fetcher has been contracting with airlines, including Virgin Atlantic and Delta, to build AI pricing systems that go well beyond "it's a busy weekend, price goes up." In November 2024, Delta told investors that about 1% of their seats were already running on this system, and they plan to scale it to 20% of domestic flights in 2025. Delta's president said out loud to investors that we're all in on this. But what does all in look like? Fetcher's own documentation describes their system as pricing based on a customer's emotional triggers. Their example, someone booking during a lunch break at work, behaves differently than someone planning a trip from home in the evening. The system can detect that context. It also found that business travelers in Singapore are 70% more likely to book premium seats when it's raining at their destination. So the weather at your destination can now be a pricing input. Emotional triggers, rain data running before you even finish your search. And in December of 2024, executives from American, Delta, United, Spirit, which is defunct now, and Frontier testified before a Senate subcommittee about AI pricing. What came out, most of those carriers require you to disclose personal information like zip code, gender, date of birth before they'll show you a price. Senators asked whether they'd commit to not using that data to set fares, and the silence was deafening. A 2024 MIT Sloan study found that some airline search engines were testing up to 10 different price variations for the same route within a 24-hour window, all varying by device, time, and how engaged the user appeared to be. So you have 10 versions of the same seat, and they're not finding the price, they're just finding your price. Hotels have run some form of variable pricing for as long as airlines have. So I'll just keep this tight, but the AI upgrade is just as real. So your apparent location, determined by your IP address, can substantially change what you're quoted for the same hotel room. SFGate investigated this in late 2024 and found real significant disparities based on where a user appeared to be connecting from. So same room, same night, different IP address, different price number at the end. Marriott tracked a $46 million profit increase, not revenue, profit, almost immediately after deploying pricing optimization tools. Fancy term, pricing optimization tools. Hilton adjusts rates in real time across regions and room types based on demand signals, competitor rates, and occupancy forecasts. These systems exist because they work. They get smarter because better data makes them work better. And then there's Concierge, which is where this stuff generates probably the most raw public fury, and for good reason. Oasis announced a reunion tour in 2024, and millions of fans queued online for hours. When they finally reached the front of the queue, prices had more than doubled. Standing tickets, originally listed around £150, were now labeled in demand standing tickets at over $350, while people were actively in the queue, not between attempts during the purchase window. The UK government announced an investigation, and the Advertising Standards Authority got 450 complaints. Ticketmaster said artists choose whether to opt in, which is technically true, and also ignores that Ticketmaster built the system, markets it to artists as a revenue tool, and profits from every inflated ticket. The thing that makes concerts uniquely brutal is the captive demand. You cannot substitute. There is no other Oasis reunion. The system knows you've been waiting in that queue for hours. There is no patience discount. It prices your emotional commitment directly. Gaming has had a genuinely rough couple of years on pricing, and I do want to separate two things happening simultaneously because they are related but also distinct. The first is just good old-fashioned price increases. Since April 2025, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft issued 8 separate price hikes on consoles, accessories, and subscriptions. In 6 months, Game Pass Ultimate went from $20 to $30 a month, then back down to $22. And the Switch 2 launched at $449.99, and the market responded accordingly. By November 2025, Xbox Series consoles were down 70% year over year, PS5 down 40%, and hardware sales hit a 30-year low heading into the holiday season. So they pushed and the market pushed back. So that part at least makes sense. The dynamic pricing piece is more insidious because it was hidden. Since November 2025, Sony has been running a quiet A/B experiment on the PlayStation Store. Different users being shown different prices for the same games. Astrobot, God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2, The Last of Us Part 2, Helldivers 2, a lot of 2s in there. Some users saw discounts as high as 27.8% compared to what others saw for the exact same title at the exact same time. Sony didn't announce this, by the way. It was discovered by PS Prices, which is a tracking site, when their system flagged unusual offer structures with experiment identifiers buried in. PlayStation's API response was brutal. You had tags reading IPT pilot and IPT OPR testing hidden in the code. So there was 3 months of running secret pricing experiments on users before anyone caught it. And by the time it went public in early 2026, the test had grown to 190 plus games across 70 plus regions. In this case, the dynamic pricing appeared to be offering discounts, not raising prices. So maybe that sounds fine, but a company secretly testing what price different users will accept with no disclosure, using identifiers it actively tried to hide, that's a company that decided you don't get to know what they're doing with your behavior data. Whatever direction the experiment runs today, the infrastructure it sits on goes in every freaking direction. Everything so far, flights, hotels, concerts, games, those are all to some degree discretionary, annoying and worth fighting for sure, but you can delay a trip, skip a show, wait for a sale, VPN, but food doesn't work that way, which is why what's happening here needs its own section. You have Instacart, which is currently under fire after a study found the same products varying in price by more than 20% for different users buying from the same store at the same time. Cornflakes, peanut butter, apples, basic staples in the average kitchen, 20% swings affected nearly 3/4 of products tested. Senators wrote to the FTC chair in December 2025 asking for an investigation. And in physical stores like Kroger, Amazon Fresh, Whole Foods, and Walmart, they're all rolling out electronic shelf labels, which are digital screens replacing paper price tags that can update prices up to 6 times a minute. Walmart plans to have them in every U.S. store by the end of 2026. Now, why do you think they're doing this? Well, both companies insist this is for operational efficiency. A Kellogg professor put the counter-argument cleanly, saying some people might say that the fact that these stores are willing to pour so much money into installing these electronic shelf labels is prima facie evidence that they plan to surge prices because there's no reason to install them otherwise. Bills to ban ESL-based pricing were introduced in 4 states. All of them failed against industry lobbying, and a Senate bill on the grocery surge pricing was introduced in March of 2026. But that's basically the state of play. Do you actually think they're not going to push dynamic pricing? Do you really think that it was just more efficient to have digital pricing? In theory, yeah, because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to go around and replace stickers and make sure that it's all done properly. But also, do you think that it's just going to be purely that? You think they're not going to dynamically change prices? What about if you're online? Do you think they're not going to look at where you live and how much you spend on groceries and assume you can pay more, right? Like, is it just me? I'm just not trusting the whole system right now. But one more piece before we get into like what you can actually do, because there's a little bit you can do. This does catch a lot of people off guard. You have loyalty programs, and that's one of the primary data pipelines feeding surveillance pricing systems. The FTC actually found this directly. Loyalty programs collect vast amount of consumer purchase data, so from your own activity and supplemented by data brokers, and that data feeds the algorithm. The specific example they used was a pharmacy identifies regular customers who consistently buy certain products. Those customers get excluded from promotional discounts because the algorithm inferred they'll buy anyway. The discount goes to the less engaged customer who actually might leave. The loyal customer in the end ends up paying more, not because they did anything wrong, but because the algorithm knows they'll show up regardless. Loyalty in this system is a signal of inelastic demand or inelastic demand, I guess. And inelastic demand gets priced accordingly. Your rewards card isn't just giving you points, it's building the profile that tells the algorithm how much flexibility you don't have. Now, here's where I'll just say plainly what I think about all this. I'm not against prices moving per se, right? Like, that's how markets work. The Super Bowl hotel being expensive during the Super Bowl is not the scandal. The scandal is the direction this is all traveling and how fast, because there's a meaningful difference between prices reflecting the market conditions, and we have identified your specific psychological pressure points, and we are charging you accordingly, individually, invisibly, before you even know a price has been set. That second thing is not a market functioning, it's an information asymmetry engineered deliberately in one direction. They know your browsing history, your location, your device, your purchase patterns, what the weather is doing at your destination. You know a number on a screen, and you have no way of knowing whether that number is the number or your number. The thing that makes this genuinely hard to fight individually is that you can't comparison shop against a price that was set for you specifically. If my price is different from your price and neither of us can see the others, the transparency that's supposed to make consumer markets work gets quietly destroyed. A Consumer Reports survey in 2024 found 66% of Americans oppose retailers charging different prices based on personal data. A follow-up in 2025 found a majority also oppose personalized discounts based on that data. 2/3 of people don't want this, but the bills keep dying, and that gap is the actual story here. We have no silver bullets. The system has more compute than any individual hack, but some things genuinely help, and some popular advice is just wrong, but let's sort them out. First off, you just got to kill the incognito myth. Incognito mode does not get you a cheaper flight. It just prevents your browser from storing cookies locally after you close the window. That's all it does. It does nothing to hide your IP address, your device fingerprint, your location, or your real-time search behavior. Consumer Reports tested thousands of flight searches and found 88% showed identical prices in incognito versus normal browsing. Airlines price based on market conditions and your parent locations. It's not cookies, right? So good to know there. VPNs are useful, but you have a VPN option. A VPN actually does mask your IP address and changes your apparent location, and geo-based pricing is real. So the same hotel room or flight can genuinely be cheaper when quoted to someone appearing to connect from 8 different countries. For hotels and some international booking platforms, connecting through a VPN set to a server in your destination country or a few EU servers is worth comparing against your home location quote. Results vary by platform. For airlines with true fare bucket systems, the difference may be minimal. For hotels and some OTAs, it can be meaningful. And if you're going for flight booking, book at least 3 weeks out for domestic, 6+ for international. You can use Google Flights or Skyscanner for market visibility and price alerts, then book directly with the airline. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are consistently cheaper than Fridays and Sundays. If you're searching for multiple seats, try searching individually versus as a group. Some systems will do like a multi-seat price and it's just not great. Hotel rates often drop closer to the date when occupancy is low, so you can use aggregators to track. Book directly with the hotel. Many have rate match guarantees and lower base prices, so you can keep the loyalty program trade-off in mind. Consistent rates in exchange for building a behavioral profile. And with games like Is There Any Deal, MPS prices track historical pricing and alert you when a game hits its floor. Every major platform has predictable sale windows. Knowing a game's price history tells you roughly when to expect a deal. Game Pass and PS Plus catalogs are your best structural hedge against day one pricing. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it though, because that's a whole different conversation. And for delivery apps, you can compare the same cart across multiple apps before you order. Prices for the same items vary by platform and by user. And unlike a grocery store shelf, you can actually do this comparison in real time. Again, like none of this is a silver bullet. Obviously, there's a lot of problems, even in these kind of minimal solutions, but I don't want to tell you there's nothing you can do, because that just feels really nihilistic, even though it's probably still just nihilistic. Like, the practice is not slowing down. We see a lot of evidence that it's accelerating, it's getting smarter, and it's being normalized one industry at a time. Each new adoption pointing at the last one is justification. Airlines do it, so hotels do it. Hotels do it, so concerts do it. Concerts do it, so games do it. Games do it, so groceries will too. The individual workarounds can help at the margins, but the structural fix is going to have to be regulatory, and that fight is currently losing. What you can do right now is understand the system well enough to stop making it easy, stop using the tricks that don't work, start using the ones that do, and pay attention to the policy fights, because those are the only lever that actually changes anything at scale, unfortunately, in this case. If this made you angry, good. It should. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. I want to hear what people have run into firsthand. And I mean, if I got something wrong, definitely let me know as well. And if you want more of this kind of thing, tech, AI, consumer stuff that actually affects your life, a little bit of gaming, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But if you don't subscribe, I might be forced to banish you to the Shadow Realm.
No. Much better.
No appeal, no refund. Take your chances. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and peace out. Bye.